welcome back to my channel Oojamaflip Books. If you're new here, my name is Jo and I am a crime fiction, thriller, suspense, Nordic noir, that kind of thing, reader from the UK. So today I have another book review for you, and this could be like the shortest review ever because I could probably sum it up in one sentence, but it would also be about the book that took me so long to read, like a ridiculous amount of time to finish this book. So the book is The Couple at Table by Sophie Hannah. As you can see, I have massively abused this book. Yeah, we'll get to that when I get to the review bit. But we'll start, as always, with what the book is about. So what is the book about? So the story is about Jane and William, who have just got married and are on their honeymoon at an exclusive couples-only resort. Jane starts receiving warnings about the couple at the table nearby, except the note doesn't specify which table, and all of the other couples are an equal distance apart from the table that Jane and William are on. When Jane is murdered, the note writer is the obvious suspect in the murder inquiry, except nobody knows who wrote the notes, and everybody else at the resort actually has an alibi for the time that she was murdered. Essentially, the book is your classic locked room murder mystery set in a country estate. It kind of feels very Jonathan Creek, because that is essentially every Jonathan Creek TV episode was him solving locked room murders. So what did I think? I'm not going to mince my words. This was without doubt one of the worst books I have ever read. I had to force myself to finish the book. There were multiple times that I thought, I'm not going to finish it, I'm just going to set it aside and put it on my DNF pile. Except I have a personal hang up with DNFs. There is only one book that I have never finished, and that is The Axeman's Jazz. Hated it within 4 pages, which is very much like this one, but I still to this day regret that I didn't finish the book. That was on a book that I had from the library, so it's a lot easier to DNF it because I basically had a fixed time that I had to get the book back to the library, so I was like, well, that's fine, I'll just take it back to the library. Whereas this was a copy that I'd bought, so I feel like I had a bit more like, well, you've spent the money, you should finish reading it. It was a struggle. No word of a lie, I fell asleep reading this book more times than I can count. It was great for my insomnia, but not great for the actual fact that I was trying to read a book. It's just so boring. I cannot express enough just how dull this book is. I think one of the biggest problems I had with the book are the characters. If you've watched any of my other reviews on this channel, you probably realise that character development, being able to actually empathise with characters is like a big thing for me, and I can forgive a lot if I like the characters or I at least feel something towards the characters. These characters are just idiots. That's the only way that I can describe them. I would say the main character is Lucy, who just everything about her makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Lucy, the main character, is completely delusional and has ideas of grandeur, and as a character makes absolutely zero sense. I think her backstory is just nonsensical. So she is the ex-wife of William. I don't feel like this is spoilers because you learn it all very early on, like within the first 2 chapters. Her current husband is Pete, and she met Pete when he was her anaesthetist, and he basically looked up her address, went to her house and just knocked on her door and started talking to her, which, how is that not just red flag, red flag, red flag? Like, that is literally, the character is written that he has broken the law, and it's okay because he's this amazing saviour and she's so in love with him. Like, I don't believe any sane person would be like, oh cool, my anaesthetist is stalking me, I'm gonna marry him. That just, I don't feel like that would happen at all. So yeah, that's one character that I have major issue with. We then have William, who, as I say, ex-husband to Lucy. The way he's described, I didn't like at all. That he basically was a maths teacher who enjoyed his job and wasn't worried about the money, and Lucy seems very materialistic and was always about the money. But if he's enjoying his job, like, why is that written as a bad thing that he's enjoying his job? And then we also have the fact that, again, don't feel like this is a spoiler because it's within, I think possibly within the first chapter this is said, but basically William is not considered a suspect in his new wife's murder because, and I quote, he didn't turn around. So his wife is murdered behind him, he doesn't turn around, and that is how he's excluded from the inquiries. Like, I'm sorry, what? How does that suddenly make you excluded? Crazy. Although maybe it's not so crazy when you consider that there are two detectives, or a detective and a sergeant, but this is actually the 11th book that Sophie Hannah has written about this detective. The detective is at the scene of the crime, a possible witness, has a very loose alibi in that he was with another, like the sergeant, I think she is, but he's then allowed to investigate the crime that he was technically party to. Like, he would be a person of interest, but it's okay because you wouldn't have done it because you're a copper, because clearly no police are bad ever. In what planet would somebody who is a witness to the crime, a possible suspect, then be gone, on you pop, you can investigate it? It just would not happen at all. They would literally be moved to not work on that and possibly moved off the department, or just put on like leave until it was solved. Like, I do not understand it at all. It just is the most balmy thing I've ever read. And if those weren't reasons enough to dislike this book, we then have Sophie Hannah's decision to have the character of Lucy write letters to the murderer. That she doesn't know who the murderer is, but she's just writing open letters to the murderer. That they just don't work within the story. She also describes pointless things down to like very minutiae of detail, but it serves no purpose. And the general plot is just missing. I feel like the ending of the book was completely stupid, to be honest. I wouldn't even say it was a thing of that it was obvious who the murderer was. It was just improbable who the murderer was, and it all seemed very forced. As I said, there was no real like plot and no flow to this book, so yeah. And then we sort of have the conclusion, and then there's a couple of extra chapters after the conclusion that feel like they were maybe the first parts that were written of the book, and Sophie Hannah didn't know how to incorporate them, so she just went, I'll just put them at the end, because they don't actually make any sense and don't help the story at all. They just kind of are there as a like, hey, at the end, and I was just like, what is the point? So yeah, this was complete rubbish, and the reason it is so bashed up is testament to the amount of times that I fell asleep where it would end up crushed against like the bedside table, the bed, the sofa, think it got dropped in the bath by how crinkled a couple of the pages are. It just, yeah, not great. And to think that this is the 11th book in the series about the detectives, who, to be honest, Tweedledee and Tweedledum would have more chance of like solving something. I don't think they could detect their way out of a paper bag. I'm trying to basically say how bad it is without giving too many spoilers is really hard, but I can sum it up by just saying it's rubbish, don't waste your time. This was the first Sophie Hannah book that I have ever read, and to be honest, I will not be reading any more. I'm not going to rush out to buy any other books by her, and if I'm given a copy of any of her works, I think it'll be going straight to the charity shop, because I'm not going to waste my time. Clearly totally holding back in this review. But as you can imagine, I give it 0 out of 5 stars. And if there was an option for me to give -stars, then I would. I feel like I just wasted my life reading this book, and I encourage you to do anything else other than read this book. Like root canal. Go for a root canal. It'd be more enjoyable than this book. So, on that cheery note, if you have read this book, let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are. I don't mind if I am alone in my thoughts of hating this book. That's the whole point of books, I guess, is that different people react differently to them, and clearly there's got to be a lot of people who've been buying her stuff, because you wouldn't get to having 11 books in a series if nobody was buying it, so there's got to be people who like her out there. But yeah, I am definitely not one of them. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more book reviews, hauls and vlogs for when I go out and about on reading based adventures, then hit the subscribe button down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!